Hey, this is Jeff, aka Quiet Horn from quiethorn.com. Quiethorn.com is where you can go to listen to some of the kind of stuff that I'm going to talk about and demonstrate right now. So let's do this. Let's play first. I'll play for a short minute here. You can hear this patch, and then I will talk about the patch and stuff like that. So let's do that. Okay, so that was kind of some meandering stuff I was doing there. But basically, I've started using VCV rack for audio processing recently. It's something, rack is something I've been into for a while. It's not that old, so not like a long while, but I've been into it for some time, just picking away and learning modular synthesis. And I never really looked at it seriously for audio processing or for live audio processing. I've used Plogue Bidual for a long time for that, for my ambient kind of stuff, my ambient improvised trombone kind of stuff. And Plogue Bidual has been great for a long, long time. But when Rack came out with the host module here, this one, which enables you to load VST plugins, it made me start to think about, hey, maybe I can actually do live audio processing using Rack. So that's what I did. I started kind of building up modules, and one of the cool things is you can use all the power of modular stuff, of CV, gates, sequencers, all that stuff, to manipulate parameters inside your VST plugins. And that's kind of where I was going with it. For a while I was thinking, man, I wish somebody would come up with a way to convert audio into CV, because then that would just take it one step further. There are software and hardware solutions for converting audio into Midi, which is not the same thing, of course. And I've used some of those before. Reaper has Retune or Reatune on it, which will convert your sound, your audio to Midi. They're always kind of hit or miss when I use them. Midi just isn't very flexible. It just sends note on, note off, note number. That's basically it. But anyway, so I really didn't expect that anyone had made anything for Rack that would convert to CV. But the other day I was poking around, like I do sometimes, and found this one here, Follower, by I guess the maker is Entreon, and this does exactly that. It takes your audio input and converts it to CV. So, like I said, I was really surprised to find that, but it's just made me, or it made it more. What am I trying to say? It's opened the possibilities for doing more and more stuff with live audio processing in Rack. So if you haven't used Entreon, go check it out. It's actually pretty good. It's the only audio to CV converter I know of. If there are any others, let me know. But it would be really disappointing if it was horrible and it's the only one. But it's actually pretty good. You can't play very fast, which I understand. It takes anywhere from 30 to 90 milliseconds to find the pitch, the fundamental pitch of your audio and convert that to CV. So I get that there has to be some latency there, but it also means you can't play anything very fast or very short. So I mean, for me that's not a big deal because I tend to do pretty slow music with lots of long notes and lots of legato stuff. So it works great for that. So anyway, I'll talk about the patch real quick. Audio is coming in over here. I'm just kind of zoomed in so you can see details, but coming in on the audio module there, of course, and I don't like to string a long cable. I kind of want the patch to flow from left to right, and that creates problems because both the audio module is both in and out on the same module, so you can't like split outputs over here and inputs over here or something. So I send the input to this little guy here, which is like a little wireless thing within rack, and then the output comes out here. So that's my input. Here I'm going into just the compressor by Bogue Audio, actually using it as a gate, because when you're making ambient music, you don't want just random sounds in the background, especially if you're like looping stuff, because you'll just loop that random sound forever. Sometimes it sounds cool. And then from there it goes like into G-Snap, which is a VST plugin. I almost always use a pitch corrector on my ambient trombone stuff. It's kind of a love-hate thing I have to do where I don't want to have to use a pitch corrector because as a trombone player, intonation is something that we strive for. On the other hand, no matter how good your intonation is, if you're looping something or you're playing with a reverb with like 100 second reverb tail or something, and you play a note that's 20 cents flat or something along those lines, which maybe would kind of not be a big deal. Well, if you're looping or you using long reverb, now that 20 cents flat note, just you hear it forever. So I use a pitch corrector, and G-Snap is pretty good. It doesn't do like auto tune stuff. I think it can, but by default it's really transparent. So from there I go into a pitch shifter. I'm just using one of these free ones by Granulon. The reason I'm pitch shifting is because the follower tracks better or tracks faster when if it's tracking a higher pitch. I guess that's just how physics works if you think about it. So so the higher the pitch, the easier, the faster it tracks, or the more consistently it tracks. So I pitch my horn up an octave to try and get a little bit of that benefit. And then from there, I get my volts per octave, and I get also get a CV out from the envelope. So volts per octave goes into a tenuverter. Not all oscillators have a way to easily increase or decrease by 1 octave. So I just use a tenuverter so that I can increase or decrease there by adding or subtracting 1 volt. And then it goes to chords. I have a few chords in here that I'm addressing with the address sequencer here in my Bogue Audio. That thing gets triggered every time. Basically, I play a note that isn't legato. So anytime that the envelope from entry in triggers something, it switches to the next chord. And the chords are all the same, basically, except the one difference is that, they're all just different voicings, but the lowest note, which is the note that's shifted down by 3 octaves or 3 volts here, the lowest note moves around between which interval in the chord it is. And that's something that if you've ever listened to Michael Brecker play original Rays, when he has an intro where he uses EWI, and he has some kind of rotator thing where it does a similar thing. I think it plays like 1 or 2 chords, but it rotates throughout the inversions, and I always like that sound, so I wanted to try something like that. From there it goes into quantum. I'm quantizing this case to an F minor of some kind. It's neither Dorian nor natural minor because it has no 6 at all, so it's just something I wanted to try. And that quantizes things so that they all stay in the same key, roughly, or the same mode. And then from there, I split it. I send to a splitter. The reason being, I want the top 3 voices. I want to be able to do vibrato and stuff if I want to. You can see this is wiggling a little bit. There's a little bit of vibrato in there. And the bottom bass note, I don't want a vibrato at all because it just gets kind of muddy. I want it to just be straight. So I split those out. So that bleak here is the whatever note is pitched down 3 volts or 3 octaves at the time, and then the other 3 notes or intervals are going through this Lindbergh research oscillator that I was messing with. Anyway, and then from there, those get split out again from that oscillator, and they all get combined back here into this mix 4. Reason for that is so I can pan a couple of them left and right to get a little stereo separation. And then from there it goes out. I could, for these VCAs, there's a pair of them because I'm doing stereo, and I know you can do, I could like put a merge in here, and then, because I know this VCA is polyphonic, but it's just easier to have 2. So, but I'm using an ADSR here for the envelope on these things because I could send the envelope straight out of entry on here and into the VCAs, but I just like to be able to have a little more control over the fade out, the release time and stuff. So when I stop playing, the note fades out as opposed to just kind of abruptly stopping. Anyway, that's not a big deal. So, and then I send it to the Blamsoft F35 filter. It's hard to say, filter. That one I'm actually, I have CV on the filter frequency itself. I always like it when the filter tracks the notes you're playing a little bit, or in this case a lot bit. So it's actually getting a volts per octave out also, just with a different offset from the attenuator. That way it'll track along with what's coming out of the oscillators. And then that goes into the mixer along with the dry sound of the trombone, which I have delayed about 50 milliseconds because, like I said, the follower audio to CV conversion takes on average about 50 milliseconds. So that's just to kind of keep them in sync. So I'm not playing trombone and then there's a 50 millisecond delay. Anyway, and then it goes into a couple reverbs, the FX reverb, also by Blamsoft, and then into Plateau by Valley, both of which are pretty good and can do really long reverbs. They're just both there because I just kind of like to switch back and forth between which one I'm using, or if I'm using both. And then from there it just goes out to Augustus Loop, which I currently don't have turned on. That's it's a VST plugin if you're not familiar. It's a looper, but I use, the way I do looping is I just prefer to do very long delay times as opposed to an actual loop. So in this case it's turned off, but yeah, I use that for looping. And then from there it goes into a couple things to make it easier to hear and stuff like that. So I have some of the other freebies here. I have a compressor, and then I have the TDR Nova equalizer to cut out some of the mid-range, because with trombone there's if you look at the overtones on a trombone, they tend to build up. There tend to be some harmonics that build up around 500 to 1,000 hertz. So I cut those down because otherwise your ambient stuff will just become this mid-range kind of nightmare. So anyway, that is the patch. So I will play it a little more and then we'll finish up. Actually, I'll just play it and fade out.